the Madman! Welcome to the start of the official star ratings for Rastakhan's Rumble. Welcome to Trump Reviews, Rastakhan's Rumble. Some of these ratings are going to be slightly off because they were rated with the assumption that the cards would be printed as is in the same meta. There are two balance changes during the season of Rastakhan's Rumble. Some of which have adjusted the ratings in my favor, some of which have adjusted the ratings against my favor, and I will mention all of this. So sorry Raptor fans, it was a bad season for you, but you had a winning streak up until now. But this time, you got gonked! So yes indeed, Druid got gonked this expansion. Not a huge surprise because they were going into this season as such a strong deck with multiple ways to win between Malagos and Togwaggle, and just big stuff. Surprisingly, Pounce actually became 3 stars due to Mecha'thun being good enough to make Druid Mecha'thun a tier 3 deck. Now, any spell that's 0 mana and has actually some amount of effect, always gotta be careful with rating these. It was cycled with jnZaneHD, showing the power of 0 mana cards, even if they do mostly suck. Every other card is 1 stars. Attack power Druid never worked out, so Spirit of the Raptor, Savage Striker, Gonk the Raptor, they were all just kind of memes and there wasn't enough support for that, and Pounce wasn't enough to make it good. This entire Draw Beast and Summon It combo between Predatory Instincts and Stampeding Roar wasn't very good, and Ironhide Direhorn was the big beast. It wasn't great enough. Mark of the Low was obviously just bad. Tree Speaker, the Treant package, wasn't very good. And War Druid Lodi, despite me thinking that it would make the fit for some of these control type druids, I think she's exactly good in Malagos Druid, and I don't necessarily know if Malagos Druid will be tier 1 or tier 2, but I know there's a home for her there at least, and perhaps Token Druid. Just wasn't quite good enough to make the spot. The Mage gets a lot of cool tools for a lot of different archetypes. Big Spell Mage, Elemental Mage, Odd Mage with Elementals. It's just that, will any of these decks actually break into top competitive play? Uncertain. Initially, the star ratings on all of these odd cards is a little bit lower than what I'm going to give them now. Elemental Evocation, 1 star. Elementals never worked out. And Elemental Evocation is a good elemental enabler, but it wasn't good enough. Daring Fire Eater, 5 stars. Not just Odd Mage was good, but specifically Odd Aggressive Mage turned out to be good. Odd Mage in general, like the big control style, ended up being around the tier 3 deck that I expected it to be. The reason why Odd Mage is good now is because Odd Rogue got nerfed with the Cold Blood hit from 1 to 2 mana. As well, with Level Up out of the way and Lesser Emerald Spellstone getting hit, Odd Mage just climbed past those, and Odd Aggro Mage slowly but surely became not necessarily the aggro deck of choice, but competitive with all of those. So I would say, in general, these particular reviews for the start of Rastakhan's Rumble were quite accurate in terms of my Odd Mage ratings, but now now it's artificially boosted since it became a better deck compared to the field. Spirit of the Dragonhawk is accurate, 1 star, wasn't good enough. Pyromaniac, 5 stars. A excellent 3 mana 3/4 stat line, which sometimes, drew you cards. Very good. Splitting Image, 3 stars. Sometimes a card in Secret Odd Mage. Not the best secret to put out compared to Explosive Ruins and to Mirror Entity, but sometimes you're playing Subject 9 and you want to draw a bunch of secrets. And hey, Splitting Image is decent when you play it with Kirin Mage. Scorch, 1 star. Elemental Mage just didn't work out, wasn't strong enough at all. Accurately predicted Blast Wave at 2 stars as a card that saw a little bit of experimentation in Big Mage, but did not see any play afterwards. And then it was only a little bit in Big Spell Mage here and there. Big Spell Mage has fallen to tier 4 and beyond. Arcanosaur, 1 star. The Elemental Mage thing just really didn't work out. Janelle the Dragonhawk, 5 stars. Janelle the Dragonhawk, this is one of the public's highest rated cards, and yet I'm going to give it 3 stars. I don't think it needs to be stated that a 7 mana 4/4 and Summon Ragnaros is really good, and there's a deck in the game that can specifically, very consistently do that. Problem is, the rest of that deck isn't that good. just to let you guys know, that was absolutely right. Odd Mage at the beginning of Rastakhan's Rumble, when we were in the Druid meta and Odd Rogue and Odd Paladin were overshadowing Odd Mage, Secret Odd Mage got overshadowed by Odd Paladin and Odd Rogue. So therefore Janelle was accurately rated at 3 stars. I'll give myself an attaboy shout out for toughly predicting Janelle at 3 stars, and it ended up being 3. But now it's 5. And then Hexlord Melicrass, 1 star. I gave it 3 stars because I thought Big Spell Mage would be able to use it pretty well. I think Hexlord Melicrass is a must play in Big Spell Mage. Great card, 8 mana, 5/5, draw 3.5 cards, and don't even actually draw cards to push yourself further into fatigue, but just get copies of cards. And that's an excellent value card. Near Valley Town approves. It is, in fact, kind of like Ancient of Lore for 1 more mana, but draws you more cards. But it turns out that in the infinite value meta that we were in, getting 3 cards is like, whatever. So Big Spell Mage ended up being really bad. Star ratings for Hunter. These were actually really tricky. Yep, Hunters, this part is going to be a bit wrong. Though I will also give you the foreword that a lot of these changed for the better after certain meta shifts. Starting with 1 card that I could be wrong, the Spring Paw, hyped by Blizzard developers to be like, you know, it's nice to have a 1-drop Hunter card that's going to see play over the next entire year. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, really? For me, I'm going to stick with my gut instinct, 2 stars. My problem is that it just reminds me so much of Razor Petal. It's basically 1 mana, deal 1 damage, and then get another Razor Petal. So the big miss here was Scavenging Hyena. But I am going to say this also. Spring Paw is one of the cards that got better as the expansions changed, because at first, Spring Paw was overshadowed by the Emerald Spellstone. But as Lesser Emerald Spellstone rotated out, that rotated Spring Paw in. And that shifted the Hunter strength over to the Beast package with Spring Paw and Crackling Razor Maul. At the same time, though, I will say that this deck was around when the Lesser Emerald Spellstone decks were around as well. And it was decent, but it was slightly worse. So perhaps a more accurate initial rating for this would be 3 or 4 stars. That's where it was around. But now it is 5 stars. So Hunter's getting some good stuff. And even cards like Spring Paw and Headhunter's Hatchet and Halazi and Master's Call, they all look interesting. They all look like they could work somewhere. And indeed, they did all end up working somewhere. After the Lesser Emerald Spellstone nerf, Hunter, backed by the power of Deathstalker Rexxar, was powerful enough to shift out of the secret package and into these other cards. So these other cards all got a boost as a result of the Spellstone nerf. The Beast Within, 1 star. Yeah, it was pretty garbage. Revenge of the Wild, 3 stars. This is one of the cards that a lot of people hyped as extremely good, but ended up not seeing any play until Midrange Hunter came about, and then this became a tech card in Midrange Hunter. Headhunter's Hatchet, originally, yes, it was around 2 stars because Midrange Hunter was not very strong with the beasts, but it has since risen to 4 stars as a decent Midrange Hunter option. In more decks than Revenge of the Wild, so I'm not going to give it the 3-star tech rating, but more of a, it's sometimes in the Midrange Hunter deck, especially if Midrange Hunter is very prevalent. Headhunter's Hatchet is pretty good in the mirror. Spirit of the Lynx, 1 star, wasn't good enough. Bloodscalp Strategist, 2 stars. It's all initial play with the Secret type Hunter, but better cards came to replace her. Master's Call, pretty decent surprise, 5 stars. Turns out that you can build a deck with only beasts in them, and Master's Call becomes 3 mana, draw 3. Sure, you would want to play Houndmaster in the deck, which is why I rated it just 2 stars initially. I was like, wow, is it really worth cutting Houndmaster? The answer is it is. And I'm sure you guys have been hearing that horn for a while. Worth noting that just like, of course, the Spring Paw, the Revenge of the Wild, the Headhunter's Hatchet, Master's Call similarly was not as powerful as it is now because it was overshadowed by other decks, even in the same class, such as Secret Hunter. Halazi the Lynx, 1 star. This card just ended up being too slow. No reason to get that much value, especially if you already have Deathstalker Rexxar granting you all the value you could get. Baited Arrow, this one was a surprise to me, 4 stars. The card can be evaluated as a 5 mana 5/5 deal 2 damage, because that's how you get the overkill of the 5/5. Just not strong enough compared to Flanking Strike, in short. So the tough part about comparing it to Flanking Strike is, yes, it's worse than Flanking Strike, but Flanking Strike, boy is it insane. Part of the reason why it's so prevalent right now is because Baited Arrow is very good at dealing 2 damage, and Midrange Hunter has a decent amount of minions that have 2 health, such as Crackling Razormaw. So Baited Arrow has become not a surprise to see in Midrange Hunter, but not in every Midrange Hunter, which earns it its 4-star rating now. And finally, Zul'jin. Zul'jin was, at release, the 5-star monster that he was because of Lesser Emerald Spellstone, as well as all of those other powerful spells, like just replaying all of the secrets. Now, though, Zul'jin has fallen to 4 stars as Midrange Hunter overtakes the Secret Hunter and the Spell Hunter, which, by the way, are both still seeing play, as Lesser Emerald Spellstone is still good, just not insane. It's time for Team Tiger. Bloodclaw, 5 stars, is an excellent addition, I think, to Odd Paladin. I'm just imagining all the times where Odd Paladin and Zoo fight it out in the early game and how useful it would be to play this Bloodclaw and kill their Flame Imp and then like damage their other guy and then send a 1/1 in to kill it. Yeah, Bloodclaw could do it. So this was one of the bigger surprises to me, that Bloodclaw wasn't good enough. Odd Paladin was very strong in the meta, but Bloodclaw just didn't even take off at it. Like, it wasn't even tried enough to make it 2 stars. So Bloodclaw 1 star. It turns out that you would rather play a minion than a Bloodclaw on turn 1. And then on turn 2 you want to press the button anyway, so I guess Bloodclaw is kind of obsolete. So now that you can have that type of reflection, it all makes sense. Bloodclaw is like a reactive card that you, but it still costs 1 mana, so blah. A lot of Paladin cards shifted in star ranking quite a bit based off of nerfs. In this case, the star ratings go in my favor. Immortal Prelate, 1 star. It was just too slow. Flash of Light, 3 stars. This card was initially also 3 stars, but after nerfs to Shudderwalk as well as Druid, this became one of the better combo decks. But then, after the nerf to Equality, once again weakened down to where it is now, lying as a tier 3 deck, the OTK Death Knight deck. High Priest Thekkel, 2 stars. Similar to the Flash of Light Timeout Shirvala package, High Priest Thekkel rose and fell with OTK Death Knight Paladin. Thekkel was a sometimes card in that deck, and now it is basically a tech card in a tier 3 deck. Flash of Light also is in control Paladin decks in general, which Thekkel may or may not be in. Timeout, 3 stars. A key part of OTK Death Knight decks. I had originally written off Timeout because I thought it would be too slow, since OTK Death Knight decks required so much time to take off, but 1 more turn was pretty useful near the end while you were bouncing all of your Death Knight summons. Zendalari Templar, 1 star, Heal Paladin never took off. Spirit of the Tiger, 2 stars. Saw some amount of play in Even Paladin. Even Paladin fell quite a bit after the Equality nerf, but still a decent deck. Spirit of the Tiger, though, just a sometimes card in Even Paladin, and with Even Paladin's further decline, didn't see that much more play. Firaki Battle Axe, it did suck so much that it was 1 star. A new challenger, 1 star, just wasn't good enough to make these Paladin decks. And finally, Shirvala the Tiger, 3 stars. At her height, a 5-star card alongside Flash of Light and Timeout after the first balance change, but before the second balance change. But now currently sits alongside Flash of Light and Timeout in the exact same deck of either the Shirvala Holy Wrath deck or the OTK Death Knight deck for Paladin. Both are solidly tier 3 decks. Third possibility Shirvala is the spicy one, the Holy Wrath Shirvala combo, but that is so much more setup than just Mechathune. So, in short, just run Mechathune, and not in Paladin, run in a different class. The interesting thing about this entire package of Flash of Light, High Priest Thekkel, Timeout, and Shirvala the Tiger is that they were both rated accurately at the first part of the expansion, as well as now. There was just that after Balance Patch 1, OTK Death Knight became really good, and after Balance Patch 2, it got more standardized to where it was at the beginning. And it's for different reasons. Before the Balance Patch 1, there were just better OTK decks. And then after Balance Patch 2, there are still better OTK decks, and equality makes this deck less good than the Mind Blast Valen type priest deck, since the equality is a worse board clear than Psychic Scream. Priest gets a lot of cards that look like they synergize with each other, and that's always the tough part to look at in expansions because they're uncertain. And like all of this theoretically works together, but you'd have to be mad to run any of those decks. Priest was tough to evaluate because they had a lot of weird stuff. Between Bwansamdi and Spirit of the Dead, it was like, is that actually going to work out? Spell Priest with Grave Horror, there was like Alkanai Phantasm Regenerate, and Sand Drudge is kind of some sort of Spell Priest. Princess Talanji for some sort of strange deck that involved taking a lot of the opponent's cards. But I am proud to say that I was right. These all ended up sucking, pretty much. There were 2 cards that aren't 1-star here, so Regenerate, Spirit of the Dead, Alkanai Phantasm, Sand Drudge, Surrender to Madness, Bwansamdi, Princess Talanji, Grave Horror, all 1-stars. Seance, 2 stars. This is pretty much a 2-star rating specifically for Quest Priest. Maybe you run the double Seance and the Zola Troll deck. You have 4 ways to go back to 40. Unfortunately, I just see that as maybe good against aggro. Against other control and against other combo, you'll probably still be at a disadvantage. Was actually in Quest Priest. Saw enough play in types of combo priests as well that attempted to finish the quest, and then you got your Amara back, and then you got to play her again, and that was a good deal. The other card that saw play was Mass Hysteria, which is a 5-star card. I wonder why I only gave it 4 stars initially. So I think this is the best priest card here. It is excellent against wide boards and good against like 2 tall minions. And against the zoo early boards, control or combo priests generally had to wait until Psychic Scream, and then they just stalled and hoped that they could get Psychic Scream off in time. Mass Hysteria is now the way to bridge that gap. So Mass Hysteria might actually enable quite a few of the combo priests to have a better chance against aggro. And that was true. And the reason why it was given a 4-star rating, and when I think about it, that was actually accurate at the beginning of the expansion, is because the decks were combo decks. You were up against Malagos Druid, you were up against Togwoggle Druid, you were up against like general big stuff Druid where Mass Hysteria didn't work against, and then you were up against Shutterwalk where Mass Hysteria is not going to do anything. So while it was a very strong card, the meta didn't seem right for Mass Hysteria to give 5 stars. In fact, at the beginning of the expansion, Mass Hysteria was worse than 4 stars because Priest wasn't very strong. It was after some of the combo decks got their legs chopped off, and even after the second balance patch, hitting everyone except Priest, that Mass Hysteria started becoming really good. So this is one of the cases where I actually overrated a card, and then it still ended up being better at the end. Welcome to the Rogue ratings! At first, I thought this class was going to have to walk the plank, but there's one particular card that might make you want to have a party. Raiding Party. 5 stars. The idea here is that you're putting Dread Corsair into your deck. Dread Corsair is a card that's only good with weapons, but thankfully Raiding Party always gets you a weapon. So then you play your weapon, pow, Dread Corsairs. 0 mana, 3/3s. Maybe that'll really buffer up its weakness against aggro. But yeah, talking about Kingsbane, that clearly looks good. More ways to find your Kingsbane. Add in some Dread Corsair, possibly Cutthroat Buccaneer, Captain Greenskin package. In short, 3 mana, draw 3, of which the cards drawn synergize with each other and are cheap enough so that you can kind of justify playing a low tempo card like Card Draw. Yeah, maybe that'll work. Absolutely right, and the best card for Rogue at the time, Raiding Party, is now a 3-star card, but at its first release, a 5-star card, pushing Kingsbane over the top so that Kingsbane had to get nerfed. Kingsbane, you died for Raiding Party's sins. Raiding Party is still used right now in a tier 3 deck, which is why it's a 3-star card now. It's in Pirate Rogue. So in short, I think Raiding Party might carry Rogue. So yeah, I guess that's the short recap. Yes, Raiding Party is pretty much the only excellent card here. Everything else is a bit of filler for the second best deck in Rogue. Note that these cards were even worse beforehand, but one of the main competitors of why would you ever run Pirate Rogue, Odd Rogue, got nerfed a bit with Cold Blood getting hit. So Serrated Tooth, 1 star, Blood Sail Hauler, 1 star, Stolen Steel, 1 star, Spirit of the Shark, 1 star, Walk the Plank, 2 stars. Saw a little bit of play back in when Kingsbane was good. It would be difficult to combo Valspine Slayer, so you would actually run some Walk the Plank. Brawl the Shark, 1 star, Cannon Barrage, 1 star, despite Pirate Rogue being kinda decent. Gurubashi Hypemon, 1 star, and the only other card worth mentioning at all here, Captain Hooktusk, 3 stars. Alongside Raiding Party, Captain Hooktusk leads the Pirate Rogue over to a tier 3 deck. While it's very impressive to think of the situations where you're going to Captain Hooktusk and you're going to get your Ticket Scalper, South Sea Captain, I feel like such a situation will be rare and or require too much setup to be practical. Plus, Valley Rogue deck has never worked before, and I don't think that the addition of this Captain Hooktusk combo is going to be enough to make it work. It's worth noting that for Captain Hooktusk, she was 1 star for the longest amount of time, and it's only after the balance change of hitting quite a lot of the aggressive decks that another contender to the throne of aggro and tempo rose to tier 3, which is Captain Hooktusk and crew. Welcome to the Shaman star ratings for Rastakhan. This particular class was very tough to give ratings for. This is the class to look into if you're a mad scientist. I feel like there's a lot of potential in this one, but it's really hard to see whether or not all the cards will synergize with each other enough to create a brand new creation. So it was hard to say whether or not they would synergize. They did not. They didn't do it enough. Even with every other deck getting nerfed, they still weren't good enough. And because Shaman was a class which I had a lot of high star ratings on, but ended up falling through, we'll go through all of the Shaman cards. Now let's start with Warbringer, 1 star. It's tough to justify a card that only does that if you play 2 spells, and the payoff is just being able to come up with an
Yep, that was a 1 star.
into mid to late game. Totemic Smash, 2 stars. I don't think that the Malagos into Totemic Smash, Lightning Bolt deck is going to be that strong, and ultimately 1 mana deal 2 damage has never been too exciting. So the reason on the Totemic Smash is because I thought Shaman would be popular enough that some people would even try out Totemic Smash, but no, 1 star. Big Bad Voodoo, 1 star. I have shockingly seen some people rate Big Bad Voodoo highly, and I'm extremely confused by how, because it's basically Ancestral Spirit. This one was very confusing. There were a lot of people who rated this card high. 1 star it ended up being. Ancestral Spirit wasn't used. And why not just use Unstable Evolution? Lick him! 5 stars. 2 mana, 3/3 weapon, if you're really optimistic. In Shudderwalk, Lickham can certainly replace Keleseth. It'll be much desired to have this 2 mana 3/3 weapon. Lickham, 1 star. It just never took off. Keleseth was still better in Shudderwalk, and there weren't enough Overload cards in Shudderwalk, and it was very tough to fit all of those cards in. I might still double down and think that post-expansion, Lickham has some serious chance of seeing play though. This was in my top 10 list, and watch out for this one in the future. But past just that, I think Lickham has a lot of potential if you're looking to combine it with the Spirit of the Frog deck. There's all this potential for an Overload deck as well. A 2 mana 3/3 weapon, like if you put it into a deck which is relatively easy to get the precondition for, that seems great. Zentimo, 3 stars. Zentimo, sadly 1 star. There were dreams of going Zentimo Hex, or dreams of Zentimo Earthen Might. Even Zentimo Unstable Evolution was pretty good, but they just never worked out, sadly. Spirit of the Frog, my reveal card, my pet favorite. I'm going to put it at 4 stars. It's a Gadgetzan Auctioneer, which continues to draw cards the turn afterwards because it's stealthed and protected. Spirit of the Frog, very sadly, 1 star. This last expansion period was pretty much, or maybe even the year, it was the year of the combo deck. So value ended up being severely overrated by myself, and only in Shaman in particular too. Like all the other classes, I seem to kind of recognize, yeah, the value isn't quite good in a world with Deathstalker Rexar and Malagos Druid and Togwaggle Druid and etc., Shudderwock, etc., etc. But Shaman, I was just optimistic because I thought there was so much value that it would be good enough. But no, it wasn't. It was just the wrong meta, I think, for value. So be on the lookout for pretty much all of these cards, Lickum, Zentimo, Spirit of the Frog, and more moving forward. Originally was going to make my top 10 list, but I am just a little bit shy on whether or not it's quite good enough. Bog Slosher, 2 stars. The number 1 deck I see this slotting itself into is the mid-range Shaman Shudderwock deck, which, after the Giggling Inventor nerf, has never quite been the same. Where Bog Slosher sees play right now, 3 stars right now by the way, is in the Elemental Shaman deck. Elemental Shaman being a tier 3 list, which recently started becoming a little bit more popular. This was after both of the balance changes. Beforehand, Elemental Shaman had no way to compete. But now with all the changes, like the combo deck slowed down a little bit, the aggro decks got a little bit worse, Elemental Shaman can be a contender in tier 3 as well, and Bog Slosher is in it. Haunting Visions, 3 stars. The place that I see Haunting Visions seeing them play the most is in any deck with Spirit of the Frog. And unfortunately, Spirit of the Frog didn't see play. Haunting Visions, 1 star. The dream, Spirit of the Frog into Haunting Visions, into casting another card with Haunting Visions and getting another card. Maybe we're going to hold off on that dream until the next expansion comes out. I still think that that is quite possibly going to work. The potential is there. When value matters again, that is a lot of value. I'm just going to tell you now. Let's just say all these ratings are for next expansion, okay? Specifically in combination with Kragma the Frog, too. 4 stars. Kragma the Frog double dips on all of your unstable evolutions, double dips on Haunting Visions, and if you're getting 2 spells back with Kragma the Frog, you're looking in really good shape. Yeah, Kragma the Frog, again with the entire value package. Good value, as long as he casts 2 spells the turn before, and just a natural fit with Haunting Visions as well. Turned out to be 1 star because value was just no good in this meta. And finally, we have Reign of Toads, which sucked 1 star. Welcome to Team Bad. Pun intended. So all in all, Team Bat, blah. Yep, that's pretty much all that needs to be said here. All of these cards are 1 star, except Grim Rally, which gets a pity 2 stars for seeing a very, very, very light amount of play in Zoo before falling off, both because Zoo isn't as good as the other decks, and also because Grim Rally is not actually good in Zoo. Try again later, discard Warlock. Welcome to Team Rhino. Team Rhino is about 2 different themes. First is about rushing, second is about dragons. And I actually think both will work. Spoiler, 1 worked, 1 didn't. I'm gonna start off with one of the proudest ratings I have of the review, Dragon Roar. 2 stars. Originally I looked at this and was like, this is the missing link between dragons. But when I decided to put the deck together, and when I've seen the pre-constructed dragon deck put together, which is honestly not that far off of what I would have made, it's like, yeah, I'm uninspired. It's not that good. And indeed, Dragon Roar ended up being really bad because the Dragon Warrior package is very similar to something like Elemental Mage. They're just not unfair enough. They're value-oriented deck in a combo meta where you can just play Deathstalker Rexar and get way more value than dragons in general as well. So I actually overrated Dragon Roar because, you know, we were in a world where everyone was giving Dragon Roar 5 stars. I was like, nah. So Dragon Roar actually ends up only being 1 star. So all in all, good stuff for Warrior. The Rush Warrior, which is tier 3, gets 2 new toys. Akalian Spirit, as well as Sulthrace, which potentially synergizes well with its aggressive nature. And it's possible that Dragon Warriors will include Dragon Roar and War Master Voon, because admittedly Odd Warrior also cannot run an excellent Dragon Lover in Fire Tree Witch Doctor. Going into this expansion, Rush Warrior was tier 3, and I thought with the inclusion of Spirit of the Rhino and Akali the Rhino and perhaps Sulthrace, the deck would remain a decent tier 3, but no, Rush Warrior instead did not stay that popular. I think that Rush Warrior can still be a tier 3 deck, but it's simply not being represented right now. Unfortunately, we live in that world. Spirit of the Rhino, 1 star. Akali the Rhino, 1 star. And Sulthrace, what a crime. I actually think Sulthrace is a pretty good weapon, also 1 star. These general mid-rangey value type cards just weren't strong enough, overshadowed by Baku and Gen. Why run these rush things when you can just have a hero power that's really good? Devastate didn't end up seeing play in Odd Warrior, so 1 star. Overlord's Whip did just suck, 1 star. Heavy Metal sucks, 1 star. War Master Voon and Dragon Roar, they both, I thought, would see a little bit of experimentation and play just because dragons are awesome, but they didn't see enough play to make it to the 2-star level, so they're both 1 stars. So that leaves us with exactly Smolderthorn Lancer and Emberscale Drake. You might be confused because Dragon Roar 2 stars, Smolderthorn Lancer, which is a dragon lover, 5 stars. Well, Smolderthorn Lancer is going to be the reason why you build a dragon deck. And I do think that there will be a legitimate dragon deck made when you're putting in an odd dragon. Emberscale Drake is basically Smolderthorn Lancer's best friend, and you will see one with the other in the same deck, always. Both cards I predicted to be 5 stars because I thought they would fit into Odd Warrior. And indeed, the only place where these dragons are fitting in is in exactly Odd Warrior. Given that, in general, I'm going to call the Dragon package tier 2 with the Odd Warrior, we'll give Smolderthorn Lancer 4 stars as well as Emberscale Drake 4 stars. And now time for the neutrals of Rastakhan's Rumble. We're gonna start off very exciting. Serenite Taskmaster, 5 stars. Is Serenite Taskmaster's downside that bad? I think not. Everything Old Trump said is true, but Serenite Taskmaster 2 stars. I think I just still have the memory of bygone eras where 1 mana 2/3 is very good because the game used to be so much more aggressive. The meta slowed down so that it's tough to justify running a 1 mana card, which is only a 2/3 in your deck. Helpless Hatchling, 1 star. 1 star. Obviously useless. Gurubashi Offering, 1 star. Gets
1
the
star.
rating for the worst card in the set.
Yes, the
Gurubashi
worst card.
Chicken, 1 star.
1 star.
Obviously a meme card. Waterboy, 1 star.
1 star.
Just use your hero power. Spellzerker, 2 stars. I think this card's ability is strong enough that it will be experimented with. Mage isn't going to be much of a deck, but that's a powerful effect.
1 star. It wasn't powerful enough for it to be experimented with, but it was one of the stronger 1 star cards.
Soup Vendor, 1 star. No soup for you.
No soup, 1 star.
1 star. Don't even think it's going to get the 2-star rating because Keleseth is in the meta and no one's going to be running these 2 cost.
Yep, 1 star.
Darkfin Fan, 3 stars. Darkfin Fan is in a strange spot where I personally cannot find a use for it because I think Even Rogue is terrible. I think that Pirates are terrible. I think that Attack Druid is terrible. But at the same time, the card is so powerful that someone should be able to figure out a use for it, right?
Nope, nobody figured out a use for it. Sharkfin Fan 1 star because Keleseth is really, really good.
When Keleseth rotates out, I would keep my eye on Sharkfin Fan. Serpent Ward, 1 star. Incredibly useless.
1 star.
Scarab Bag, 2 stars. I think there is a possible chance that this card might be fit into Even Shaman.
Yep, 2 stars. It was experimented in Even Shaman, and it was also experimented in Grim Rally Zoo.
Scarabag right now, by the way, breaking news, seeing a little bit of an uptick in aggressive Paladin style with Blessing of Might and Blessing of Kings, as well as just more buff cards here and there. Fire Tree Witch Doctor, 4 stars, has applications in both the Control Priest, which is running dragons, I think that's the most likely, as well as just your usual Dragon Warrior, which is not odd.
So yes, Fire Tree Witch Doctor, 4 stars. Good enough to be running in a variety of control decks which have dragons, the chief of which is Dragon Priest. This card's really strong and I would expect to see more of it in the future especially if more dragons, which are good, are printed. The other decks we see Fire Tree Witch Doctor seeing an appearance in are many and varied, including Big Spell Mage, Dragon Warrior, and Dragon Shaman? Well, apparently that's a thing. It's not a good thing, but it's a thing. Dozing Marksman, 1 star. I don't think I'm sleeping on
1 star.
04, which takes a lot of work. GD Ankle Biter, 1 star. The addition of Lifesteal doesn't make the Battlecry deal 1 damage stat line good. Or does it? Well, the lifesteal on Cheaty Ankle Biter is important enough such that it can activate Corpse Taker. This is actually one of the strongest lifesteal cards you can run in Warlock to activate Corpse Taker. And so it saw play in Mechathune Warlock, a tier 3 deck. So Cheaty Ankle Biter gets 3 stars. Fun fact, you can even Ankle Biter yourself in order to buff the Spellstone. Burebe Bookie, 1 star.
1 star.
3 mana, 3/3, which is terrible. Belligerent Gnome, 1 star. Not gonna be running aggressive decks, which
1 star.
Seth. Untamed Beastmaster, 2 stars. I personally don't think that Untamed Beastmaster will find play with Master's Call, because I feel like Master's Call will do very poorly if you put in any non-beast into your deck.
1 star, but noteworthy that this is one of the higher rated 1 stars, almost making it to 2 stars because of Mage having a Safari deck where you ran a lot of beasts and also Untamed Beastmaster, since Alunus draws so many cards. It was weird.
Ornery Tortoise, 3 stars. I think there's exactly one deck that would consider this, and that's Odd Paladin.
And it did consider it for a little bit. 2 stars. Didn't make the ultimate cut.
Masked Contender, 5 stars. This card fits into a already excellent card in the meta, Secret Hunter. 3 mana, 2/4, draw and play a secret that normally costs 2 mana. Like, that's really strong.
Masked Contender, currently a 2 star, but before the Lesser Emerald Spellstone, it was seeing a lot of play in Secret Hunter, even saw some play in Secret Mage. But slowly but surely, people found better cards for it, and certainly after the nerf.
Drakari Trickster, 1 star.
1 star, hilarious in my Gift Lock deck.
Banana Buffoon, 1 star. A lot of rumblings around this card potentially being good with spell synergy, or potentially good with activating the spell quest.
2 stars. I think in my time playing Hearthstone, I barely ever saw Banana Buffoon, but the stats don't lie that it was seeing play here and there. RDU played it in Miracle Rogue. Interesting.
Ticket Scalper, 1 star, too slow.
Ticket Scalper, 3 stars. When Captain Hooktusk was revealed by Disguised Toast, you saw the dream for Hooktusk, pulling out 2 Ticket Scalpers and like a South Sea Captain. And then the Ticket Scalpers killed stuff and drew cards. And I was like, wow, that is such a meme. How will that ever work? Well, that's the entire point behind Hooktusk, it turns out. Pull out the Ticket Scalpers. You did it, Ticket Scalper.
Rumble Tusk, Shaker, 1 star.
1 star.
It's just a classic case of not enough stats. Regenerating Thug, 1 star.
1 star.
3/5 stat line just isn't strong enough. Murloc Tasty Fin, 1 star, too slow for
1
a
star.
Murloc deck. Ice Cream Peddler, 1 star. Way too much
1
work
star.
to try to get
Hilarious with Shutterwalk.
for the payoff of 8 armor. Halftime Scavenger, 1 star, and this one is a little bit close to 2 stars, but I decided to round it down to 1.
This was actually close to 2 stars. It did see a little bit of play in Evenlock, but not enough. 1 star.
Grifta, as much as I hyped it up, 1 star. The closest deck it would
1 star,
possibly be
hilarious in
is
Gift Lock.
even Paladin, and I think that will be close, but not quite. Arena Treasure Chest, 1 star.
1 star.
Jordan's Drubashi Offering is one of the less good cards in the set. Arena Fanatic, 1 star. I think it has a little
star.
bit of potential application in Zoo, but
Saw some amount of play in a few decks, all of which were wrong.
1 star. I was
1 star.
tempted to call this a sleeper, but it warps your deck a little bit too much to try to take
This one
advantage
almost
of
made it
Snapshot
2 stars
Shellfire's
also.
Ability, I'd say. Sightless Ranger, 1 star. It reminds me a
1
lot
star.
of feeding time for Warlock, and that's not a good reminder. Moshog Announcer, 1 star. Nice aggressive
1
stat
star.
line. A little bit
5
hard
mana,
to kill,
6/5,
but
just not good enough even with a
ultimately
bonus.
Not strong enough, I think, to fit into any deck, even aggressive odd decks. Former Champ, 1 star. 5 mana, 6/6
1 star.
stat line is not quite good enough. Dragon Maw Scorcher, 4 stars. I think that the stat line is pretty decent for the ability. It's worse than Ravaging Ghoul, but Ravaging Ghoul was just such a beast. This card enables your Molderthorn Lancer to perform the Execute ability, and it's just one of the dragons you need to make the whole deck work.
Yeah, it was a very, very good dragon. Both in the odd warrior deck that ran the Lancer, but also in Dragon Priest, and for that reason 5 stars. This was a card that I remember debating on early on in the expansion, being like, well, we're not going to run all of the dragons, right? Which dragons will we cut? Well, it turns out that Dragon Maw Scorcher is a keeper. Arena Patron, 1 star. What 1 star. Mojo Master Azihi, 5 stars. The more combo decks or control decks we see which require playing a 9 mana or 10 mana card, or a 9 mana or 10 mana combo, the more Mojo Master Azihi we're going to see in probably mid-rangey decks. So the interesting thing about Mojo Master Azihi is that she is good against the combo decks. 4 stars though. A good tech option across a lot of different decks. Might have even made it to 5 stars, but so many decks that are good are odd, so you can't put Mojo Master Azihi in. In the future, expect Mojo Master Azihi to be more useful in a meta where there are more mid-range decks, and there are also combo or control decks. Mojo Master Azihi has shown that she is useful. Rebel Bouncer, 1 star. I think even in a evolve-focused deck, this will not make the cut. Blind Cracker, 1 star. 1 star. Big minion that doesn't do anything quickly for 7 mana, just doesn't cut it. Crowd Roaster, 4 stars. For along the same reasoning as Dragon Maw Scorcher, I think it is a card that will make it into Odd Warrior with Dragons. It was reasonable enough. Yep, not just Odd Warrior with Dragons, but also Dragon Priest, 5 stars. Crowd Roaster is the highest played neutral of this expansion, which is a little bit surprising to me, because I was kind of debating between Crowd Roaster and Dragon Maw Scorcher, which one of these cards is going to be the weak link of the Dragon package. Turns out they're both very good. Amani Warbear, 2 stars. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to see the Rush deck use it, if we're going to see the Taunt deck use it, or if we're going to see it because of the Beast quality, or maybe a mix of all of them, even though it only has 2 words. Like, it's pretty flexible. Its stats don't suck for the mana cost. 4 stars. I think this is a surprise. Who knew that Rush and Taunt would be so good together? The fact that it had a Beast tag also was very useful, alongside Undasta in the Odd Warrior package that decides to run these beasts instead of the dragons. Moshog Enforcer, 2 stars. I scoured all of the decks for the opportunity to run the Moshog Enforcer plus the Tar Creeper plus the Witchwood Grizzly combo in that happened. Master Oakheart deck. I don't think there's anywhere that's that practical for it outside of exactly Taunt Druid. And Taunt Druid so close, Dragon so close. 2 attack. I listed all 3 of the cards, but I failed to see that it would be the defining moment of Wall Priest. 5 stars because of Wall Priest. Worth noting that at the beginning of the expansion, Wall Priest would not nearly be good compared to all of the combo decks out there, so the 2-star rating was actually accurate at the time. If we were to rewind, Wall Priest wouldn't do that well in the meta of Druid, which could ramp up and do its stuff much faster against a control deck which focused against minions. Although, to be fair, it would be difficult to know exactly how well Wall Priest would do because it was a deck that was only developed further into the meta. The Undertaker, 3 stars. I think this will be a card that might see play in and out of Death Rattle Rogue and Death Rattle Hunter. The Undertaker, 2 stars. It was a card that saw a little bit of play in Druid with the Astral Tiger plus Undertaker getting the Death Rattle of Astral Tiger and thus being able to go infinite. That was like yet another way that Druid could win before Wild Growth and Nourish got nerfed. It was the worst way of all of the Druids, but it was a way. And then there's also Death Rattle Rogue. Neither were that good. Undasta, 5 stars. I think this is a natural fit into the big recruit hunter deck. Death Rattle Hunter might see a return to their Katharina base, and then with their big beast synergy, because Undasta is pretty sweet to pull out of Katharina, and it is pretty sweet to pull out a charged Devil Sword with Undasta in turn. Undasta, 5 stars. Perhaps the bigger surprise is that not only is it in the big hunter types with the Katharina and, you know, just big beasts and whatever, it's also a key component of Odd Warrior. Undasta can help pull out the Amani Warbear, and also, of all things, it can pull out Baku. And in the case that it pulls out Baku, Baku is normally like your worst play. But when Undasta comes and pulls out a free Baku,
then hey, that's not bad at all. And finally, Hakar, the meme, 1 star. If you want to imagine that you're in a Yu-Gi-Oh type anime and you want to have the perfect card to stop your opponent's combo of Mecha'thun Druid or Mecha'thun anything, you slam the Hakar and then you kill your Hakar and they can never win with Mecha'thun.
So last but not least, Hakar the Soul Flare was a meme turned into a dream. So good that it actually made some tournament appearances, but at the same time, so bad that it is one of the lowest win rate decks in ladder, showing that ladder and tournaments aren't always the same thing, because sometimes you prepare for a very specific tournament meta where you can beat control decks with Hakar the Soul Flare, and on ladder the players in general are worse than the good players. End of the day, Hakar the Soul Flare 2 stars, but boy is this a card that has been around the block. Of all of the Druid combos, I think at the height it was still worse than Malygos Druid, and it was optional with Togwoggle since you would just give them an empty deck anyways, but sometimes it was useful to just kill them. So those are the cards of Rastakhan's Rumble. In general, there weren't that many 5-star or 4-star cards, but I will take credit for predicting that there weren't going to be that many. They weren't always assigned to the right places, but there you have it. A lot of small changes in terms of how the stars moved as well, since there were 2 balance changes in between. None of them directly affected any of these cards, but they were all kind of side movements as a result. I tried to make sure I spoke about cards whenever they did have the side movement at the very least. Hope you enjoyed this shorter form of Trump Reviews. Let me know how it went.